So today I'm starting on something a little different. I'm actually building a Civil War era rifle. I started this project because I found some parts for cheap. It's sort of become soup from a stone for me. But I've always been a big history buff, big Civil War nut, and always wanted one of these rifles. And I also don't currently have a muzzleloader to use in our state's muzzleloader season for deer, hunting season for deer. So this will give me a cool gun when it's done, and also something I can go deer hunting with. So I've got a walnut stock here that was made by machine. It's already had most of the inletting or carving done. But I have to finish fitting metal parts to it. So I have things like this butt plate and the patch box, which is a brass lid to go over this cavity. And those are the two parts I'm going to work on fitting today. And then later on I'll fit the barrel and the lock, the trigger and trigger guard, and the barrel bands. So this rifle was officially named the Model 1841 and adopted by the U.S. military as the first percussion rifle adopted by the military. And it became known as the Mississippi rifle after Mississippi troops at the Battle of Buena Vista in the Mexican War used these rifles with great distinction. And there were large numbers of them used in the Civil War by both sides, and it's just a handsome rifle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the butt plate for fitting by filing off any burrs that get in the way of the metal to wood fit. So it's just a raw casting. It's a new made part. This little projection here is the casting sprue, which is where the metal, the brass, when it was poured into the mold, that's where the brass came into the mold. I'll cut that off and get it out of the way. This brass is so different to work with than iron or steel. But it also doesn't cut as nicely. I'm not sure what the relationship is between softness and the ability to cut it, but it doesn't cut as nicely as steel. It's actually harder to cut, and you really need brand new sharp files to do a good job on brass. So this butt plate, some of the other parts I have, are raw castings. They're cast using the lost wax method, and these were cast in the U.S. somewhere for the rifle shop in Oklahoma. So if you look the rifle shop up online, they have a great selection of parts for both civilian and military historic firearms. And they were a great source for parts for this build. Alright, that's just some of the rough smoothing. I've got the mating surfaces fairly smooth. Now we're going to move on to fitting it. I don't believe the angle is quite right, and I was afraid of that. So we'll have to adjust this. Oh. I'm going to use a wooden mallet this time, so as to avoid marring anything. That looks about right. So I'm just trying to make sure that the angle between these two halves matches up to the stock. And it's real close. All right, we're gonna go with that. So we're gonna go ahead and take this projection off, or most of it. All right. So it looks like I need to adjust the angle ever so slightly again. Now that we've got it really close, we're going to use a substance called inletting black to sneak up on the fit and get it really close. So this stuff here is a greasy black substance used for inletting. I'll put a little bit on a toothbrush. A little bit goes a long way. And what we're going to do is we're going to brush this over the mating surface. Now, traditionally, this could be done with a substance made from like grease and lamp black, but you can also do this just by using a sooty candle and by holding the piece over the candle. I don't prefer that method because the piece gets hot and it's uncomfortable to hold. So I'm going to carefully set this in here, and I'm going to kind of mash the piece in place. I might very lightly tap it. I don't really want to mess up my impression here, but what this will do is when we take it off, you'll see it's left little black spots wherever the metal is contacting. And then all I have to do is carve off those spots to get a better fit. So right here, we're going to carve off these high spots. We're going to take the brush and spread the inletting black around over the spots that were bare now, and try this again. Set it in. Make sure it's firmly seated. And pull it back out. And we're just going to keep doing this until we get a really nice fit. But the fit doesn't have to be perfect here in the middle, but I do want it to be really close to perfect around the edges. And the wood to metal fit on original military arms is not as fine as on some civilian sporting arms. But I'm not much of a gunsmith either, so if I'll just get it as close as I can, but not perfect, it'll probably be about right. I do want to make sure to close any gap around the top there. This is actually not going to take long, and then we're going to be all done with the butt plate. And then it'll be time to move on to the patch box. Alright, I'm happy with that. It's probably better than most originals. That's definitely good enough for me. Not a perfect fit, but really, really tight. No major gaps anywhere. So the next step is to drill for the bolts. Here's the other. So these are actually original butt plate screws from a Mississippi rifle.
Whoa.
I'm gonna have to clean up these holes a little bit. All right, let's wipe the rest of this blacking off of here.
Yucky stuff off.
It's not yucky, but it is definitely bad. It does a good job. All right, so our countersinks are not quite deep enough.
That looks like some very soft metal.
It is. Brass is pretty soft.
That is better. But not all the way better.
All right, that looks good. I've clamped this using tape so that it can't move this way and therefore mess up our fit. And then I've drilled a short hole the diameter of this unthreaded section of the screw. And when I get done drilling enough of a hole for that, then I'll switch to a smaller drill, which will go the rest of the depth. Clean out the slot just a little bit. It's very dirty.
Ooh, dear.
All right. We're going to take these screws out later, and I'll polish them. Polish them and probably blue them.
What's bluing?
Well, you know the color of the barrel on like my rifle? That's blued. Very good. It's not clocked in line, but 90 degrees is the next best thing. So there's our butt plate, all fitted.
Let me try it out. Too flat.
Too flat.
It needs to be curved.
It'll work just fine. Ain't it pretty? Okay, so now it's time to move on to the patch box. I don't think the patch box is going to take near as much fitting. Famous last words. So we've got a little bit of extra wood sticking up past the butt plate here, and I'm going to take that down, not to the finished surface, but close, before I fit the patch box, so that I make sure that I get the patch box deep enough. Alright, now let's check out this patch box. I already know that it needs a pretty good amount of brass removed from the front here. This end of the patch box is a little bit long. There's a little more material here than there needs to be. So I'm going to take off some of the brass until these gaps close up and it slides up there tight. And then we'll work on fitting this end. Despite all my efforts, I got that a little bit short right there, but that's okay. It'll be all right. Very nice. So one of the things that's helped me in this build is I actually have an original rifle to look at. And while it's missing its fore end and front barrel band, there's still a lot of things about the parts that are here that I'm able to reference off of. But this rifle was made in 1849. And here's our results so far. So there's a little bit of a comparison between the two. And I think it's looking good. I've still got to add the parts inside the patch box that keep the patch box shut. There's the file I was looking for the whole time.